Ladies and gentlemen, in the modern world, where imitation is often rewarded and conformity is mistaken for safety, authenticity becomes a rare and valuable asset, yet most people overlook it. They chase trends, adopt personas, and silence their inner voice in exchange for temporary approval or superficial gain. But the truth is, the closer one gets to their authentic self, the more aligned they become with a kind of invisible economy, a psychological and spiritual marketplace where integrity, originality, and inner congruence hold measurable value. Being yourself is not simply an ethical or philosophical choice, it is a practical strategy for thriving. When you act in harmony with your inner essence, others sense it. They feel a kind of coherence that breeds trust, and trust, in the psychological language of commerce, is capital. People are deeply intuitive even when they do not know it. They can detect when someone is posturing, selling something they don't believe in, or behaving in ways that betray their own nature. They may not articulate this discomfort, but they feel it, and it repels them. On the other hand, when someone operates from a place of self-knowledge and congruence, their presence becomes magnetic. This is because we all secretly long to be ourselves, but fear holds most people back. When they see someone living in truth, they are not just witnessing a personality, they are witnessing permission. This dynamic creates influence, and influence is often what precedes income. To make money by being yourself, you must first recognize that what you bring into the world has value not because it is loud or popular, but because it is rare. And the rarest thing in a noisy world is an unmasked human being. To become this person, you must endure a process of peeling away layers, expectations, personas, borrowed identities, and return to the core. That return is painful, disorienting, and uncertain, but it is also freeing. Once you arrive at that inner center, you begin to understand what you are meant to offer, not based on metrics or market gaps, but based on resonance. When your offering is an extension of who you are, rather than who you're pretending to be, it carries a unique frequency. It doesn't compete, it simply calls. Authenticity also saves energy. Pretending is exhausting. Performing for approval drains the psyche and fractures the self. But when your actions and expressions flow from who you truly are, your work replenishes you. This creates sustainability. You can stay in your lane longer, evolve organically, and build a foundation that lasts. Over time, that leads to not just momentary profits, but wealth built on alignment, both internal and external. Authenticity also removes resistance. You no longer struggle to prove yourself because your value is self-evident. You no longer fear rejection because you are no longer selling a version of yourself you don't believe in. Paradoxically, the more you stop trying to be liked, the more you attract the people meant for you. These are your true audience, your loyal customers, your genuine supporters. You are no longer manipulating the world into loving a mask. You are letting the world find you as you are. In this sense, authenticity is not just personal virtue, it's strategic leverage. When you commit to being yourself, not only do you free yourself psychologically, but you open channels for income that are rooted in purpose. The money that comes through these channels doesn't just feed the ego, it nourishes the soul. That is a rare and honorable exchange, one that begins the moment you stop hiding and start living from your truth. Before any practical strategy can be effective, whether it's about building a business, attracting clients, or creating passive income, there must be a deep understanding of the self. Without this foundation, even the most sophisticated techniques collapse under the weight of misalignment. Most people rush into monetization without pausing to ask the essential questions. Who am I beneath the roles I play? What drives me truly? What are the patterns, fears, or desires that shape my actions? These are not surface-level inquiries, they are psychological excavations, and the answers often lie beneath years of conditioning, trauma, and inherited beliefs. True self-knowledge is not just about recognizing your skills or listing your passions. It's about uncovering the deeper architecture of your psyche, the core motivations, emotional needs, unconscious tendencies, and archetypal forces that influence your decisions. When you know what animates your being, you can choose paths that nourish rather than drain you. But when you build strategies on an unknown self, you're essentially gambling with your energy, time, and well-being. Many people burn out not because they work too hard, but because they are working in contradiction to their inner truth. Self-awareness creates clarity, and clarity breeds power. Once you understand your inner structure, you begin to see which environments you thrive in, what kind of work energizes you, and how your natural temperament interacts with the world. For example, someone deeply introverted but unaware of it may try to build a career around constant interaction, thinking it's the only way to succeed, only to find themselves depleted and resentful. But with insight, that same person might realize they thrive in deep, solitary creative work that attracts income passively or through asynchronous communication. The key wasn't external, it was internal. Your unique psychological blueprint is your greatest compass. When you follow it, you're not forcing success, you're aligning with it. You begin to choose methods of making money that feel natural, even joyful. You don't copy others because you know what works for them may fracture you. Instead, you ask, what form of value can I create that reflects my inner life? This is not selfishness, it is wisdom. Because the value that comes from a place of deep truth is far more impactful than value manufactured from imitation. Even in practical matters like marketing, branding, or communication, self-knowledge transforms your effectiveness. You begin to speak from an inner certainty. You know what you stand for, so your messaging is consistent and compelling. You no longer chase trends or constantly rebrand because your direction comes from the inside, not the marketplace. Ironically, this is what creates distinction. In a world of mimicry, the person who has rooted their strategy in self-awareness stands out without trying. They are not performing, they are expressing. And expression, when authentic, is far more powerful than performance. Most importantly, self-knowledge protects your integrity. It helps you resist paths that offer profit but violate your inner values. It teaches you to say no to things that may bring temporary gain but long-term dissonance, and in doing so, it creates space for the right opportunities, those that feel aligned not only with what you can do, but with who you are. Money earned in alignment with your true self carries a different energy. It feels clean, it empowers you, rather than enslaves you. So before seeking income, seek understanding, not just of markets, not just of tactics, but of yourself. This is not a detour, it is the direct path. Because when the self is known, every strategy becomes sharper, every effort more meaningful, and every dollar earned a reflection of a deeper harmony. The parts of ourselves that we hide, deny, or reject, often labeled as weaknesses, flaws, or shameful experiences, are not obstacles to our success but gateways to our highest creative potential. These hidden aspects, known in depth psychology as the shadow, contain immense psychic energy. Most people spend their lives suppressing these parts in an attempt to appear polished, acceptable, or successful. Yet, ironically, it is precisely these disowned parts that, when integrated, can become the raw material for innovation, influence, and income. The process of confronting the shadow is not comfortable. It demands honesty, emotional endurance, and the willingness to face what has long been buried. But once that energy is reclaimed, it no longer sabotages us from the unconscious. It begins to serve us consciously. Think of the person who was once silenced as a child, who grew up feeling invisible or afraid to speak. That experience, if unexamined, might manifest later in life as avoidance, self-sabotage, or chronic insecurity. But if that person turns toward the root of their silence, explores it, and accepts its place in their story, they often discover a powerful voice waiting to emerge. That voice, authentic, scarred, and courageous, can become the basis for a meaningful message, a business, or a mission that resonates with thousands. What was once a wound becomes a brand. What was once hidden becomes the very thing that others connect with. People don't respond to perfection, they respond to humanity, and the more integrated a person is, the more they've made peace with their own contradictions, the more magnetic they become. You don't have to market authenticity when it's real. It shows when someone who has done their inner work speaks, teaches, or creates. Their work carries a certain psychological weight. It's felt, it's grounded in lived experience, not theory. That depth gives rise to trust. And trust in any domain, whether coaching, content creation, entrepreneurship, or leadership, is the bedrock of monetization. Shadow work is not only healing, it is creative. Many of the world's greatest artists, innovators, and entrepreneurs didn't succeed in spite of their pain. They succeeded because they transformed it. They found a way to alchemize their inner chaos into expression, into service, into structure. The trauma became art, the anger became advocacy, the shame became empathy, the guilt became fuel for transformation. This process is not mystical, it's deeply human, and it's accessible to anyone willing to do the inner excavation. This is why being yourself isn't just good advice, it's good business. But being yourself isn't about showing only your strengths. It's about integrating your whole self, especially the parts you were taught to hide. When you do this, you unlock a creative current that is unique, powerful, and difficult to replicate. Others can copy your content or your products, but they can't duplicate your psychological wholeness. That's your edge. Turning toward your shadow requires courage, but that courage is what differentiates depth from superficiality. And in a world oversaturated with curated perfection and digital performance, people are starving for something real. When you offer your story, your truth, and your integrated self, not in the name of confession, but in the service of contribution, you offer a rare kind of value. That kind of value builds community, loyalty, and revenue over time. So, the very parts of you that you once thought disqualified you from success might be the foundation of your deepest creative power. When embraced and expressed, your shadow doesn't darken your path, it illuminates it. In a society fixated on outcomes and obsessed with performance metrics, the temptation to chase profitability over meaning is nearly irresistible. Many are taught, either directly or subtly, that value lies in what generates immediate results, what gets clicks, likes, conversions, or attention. But beneath this surface-driven system lies a deeper psychological truth. What is meaningful to the soul sustains itself, while what is driven by pure external gain often collapses under its own emptiness. The pursuit of meaning is not a sentimental or poetic luxury, it is a practical necessity for long-term fulfillment and financial endurance. Money gained without meaning leaves a person spiritually bankrupt. But when meaning precedes monetization, the financial success that follows carries a resonance that energizes rather than depletes. To make money by being yourself, one must begin not with the question, what will sell? But rather, what matters to me so deeply that I would still pursue it if no one noticed? This shift in focus requires a kind of inner loyalty, an allegiance to the deeper self that refuses to betray its values in exchange for short-term gain. It requires the courage to create from the heart, even when the market is looking elsewhere. This is the paradox of meaning. When you do something from genuine inner alignment, it may not catch fire immediately, but over time it gathers a depth of influence and trust that no trend can match. People return to it over and over because they sense something real, something rooted. Meaning transforms labor into legacy. A person working solely for income may feel temporary satisfaction when the money arrives, but often experiences burnout, resentment, or boredom soon after. Meanwhile, someone creating from a place of meaning may work just as hard, or harder, but feels nourished rather than drained. Their energy replenishes itself because they are connected to a larger inner purpose. That connection becomes a source of resilience. In moments of failure, confusion, or challenge, it is meaning, not profit, that keeps them going. When others give up, the one anchored in meaning continues because they are not just chasing success. They are fulfilling something within themselves. Moreover, meaning creates coherence. Your actions, values, and decisions begin to align. This coherence becomes visible to others. Clients, audiences, customers, or collaborators begin to trust you not just for your product or content, but for your presence, your clarity, your integrity. And trust in the world of income creation is a magnet. It draws opportunity toward you, often without force or manipulation. People want to be around those who are lit from within. That inner light is not charisma, it is conviction. Pursuing meaning does not mean ignoring practicality. It means anchoring practicality in something deeper. You still study your craft. You still learn marketing, develop skills, and take strategic action. But now your strategy has soul, your money has meaning, and your work becomes not just a means of survival, but a mirror of your inner life. That is where fulfillment begins, not when you finally make it, but when the process itself reflects who you are. In the end, the most powerful forms of income are those rooted in purpose. They grow slowly, but they grow strong. They do not require constant reinvention because they are not built on superficial trends. They are built on inner truth. So if you wish to make money by being yourself, start by asking not what will work, but what will matter. Build from that place. The money will follow, but more importantly, you will follow through not because you must, but because you care. And in the landscape of modern life, caring deeply is not a weakness. It is a rare and profitable strength. Your personal story is not just a recollection of events. It is your most valuable asset, your living brand. In a world overloaded with data, formulas, and artificial presentation, what cuts through the noise is the power of real human experience, and no one else has lived your story. The pain you've endured, the lessons you've learned, the patterns you've broken, the identity you've reclaimed, these are not random events. They are threads of meaning that, when woven together and shared with honesty, create a narrative others can see themselves in. People do not connect with abstract perfection, they connect with truth. And when your truth is communicated with clarity and purpose, it becomes your unique fingerprint in the world, a brand that no one can imitate. Many people try to build a business, career, or platform by looking outward. They study what others are doing, copy popular strategies, or try to emulate success without first examining their own lived experience. This often leads to misalignment, but when you build from your own story, your brand has depth. It is infused with insight that only you can offer. This doesn't mean your story must be dramatic or full of hardship. What matters is not how extraordinary it looks, but how deeply it has shaped you. Whether your journey has been one of healing, overcoming, discovery, or awakening, it holds wisdom, and that wisdom, when transformed into a message or mission, becomes both personal and universally relatable. Your story is not just what happened to you, it is how you made meaning out of it, and that meaning, when distilled, becomes valuable to others. Think of someone who has spent years dealing with rejection, learning emotional resilience, and eventually cultivating self-worth. That journey, when reflected on with self-awareness, becomes a narrative others can draw strength from. That person can write, speak, coach, teach, or create around that experience, not from theory but from embodiment. Audiences don't just hear what they say, they feel it. That emotional resonance is the heartbeat of a personal brand. Even in professional spaces, storytelling is a form of leadership. People follow those whose identity is coherent, whose values are visible, and whose journey they can understand. Your story allows people to relate to you, trust you, and feel that you see them. In the realm of business, this trust often translates into loyalty. People buy from brands that feel human, they stay with voices that feel real, and they share content that moves them. All of this is built not on sleek branding or aggressive marketing, but on narrative integrity. This doesn't mean oversharing or turning your life into content. It means intentionally reflecting on your experiences and choosing what to share in service of others. Vulnerability, when grounded in purpose, becomes a tool for connection, not a cry for attention. And when you lead with story, you lead with substance. You invite people not only to witness your life, but to locate themselves within it. This is what creates transformation, and transformation is the currency of lasting value. Your story is already within you. It is evolving every day. You do not need to invent it or embellish it. You need only to listen to it, understand it, and express it with intention. When you do, you stop marketing in the traditional sense and start relating. And people don't forget those who make them feel seen. That is the power of a true personal brand. It doesn't just represent who you are. It reflects what you've overcome, what you stand for, and what you're here to give. That is how your story becomes your signature, your message, and your way of making money by simply being who you are. The more you become who you truly are, the more your ideas, expressions, and creations begin to stand apart from the noise of the world. In the pursuit of self-knowledge, you begin to peel away the layers of imitation, expectation, and fear that once dictated your choices. What remains is something original, not because you tried to be different, but because you stopped trying to be anything else. Individuation, the process of becoming your whole and undivided self, is not merely a psychological journey. It is also a source of innovation. It allows you to bring into the world something no one else can, a voice, a vision, and a value system that is rooted in inner truth. That uniqueness, once realized, becomes the foundation of everything you create, offer, or sell. Most people are conditioned to look outward for direction. They measure their worth by comparison, their creativity by approval, their purpose by trend. But nothing truly innovative ever came from mimicry. Original ideas are born from the tension between who we are and who we are becoming. That tension, if faced with honesty, becomes fertile ground for insight, solutions, and contributions that are ahead of their time. And those who follow the path of individuation, who choose to integrate all parts of themselves and live from the core, often find that what they create carries a different weight. It doesn't just meet needs, it reveals possibilities. It doesn't just solve problems, it awakens something deeper in others. Innovation does not always look like invention. Sometimes it looks like a new way of speaking about an old truth. Sometimes it's the courage to ask the question no one else is asking. Sometimes it's the choice to serve a group of people that others have overlooked. When you are deeply yourself, you stop trying to win over the world and start listening to what is being asked of you inwardly. You begin to trust your inner signals more than the noise of the crowd. And that quiet confidence becomes the origin point of ideas that are both useful and transformative. In this way, individuation becomes the most radical act of differentiation. You are no longer just another version of someone else. You are no longer repeating what has been said 100 times. You are speaking from a lived place, a place that contains nuance, contradiction, and wholeness. This depth becomes a creative edge. Whether you're building a business, writing a book, designing a product, or launching a service, what flows from that place is distinct because it is fully inhabited. You are not delivering content, you are delivering consciousness. The world does not need more experts who speak without embodiment. It needs more individuals who dare to bring their integrated self into their work. When you do this, you attract not just attention, but resonance. People recognize something in you that they have not yet claimed in themselves. That recognition builds loyalty, credibility, and demand, not because you forced it, but because you stood in truth long enough for others to gather around it. This is the great paradox. The deeper you go into yourself, the broader your reach can become. Because in becoming fully yourself, you become relatable at the most human level. People sense integrity, they feel safety in your presence, and they trust your message because it is not borrowed, it is born. So the path to sustainable innovation and income is not found in endless research, imitation, or manipulation. It is found in returning to yourself, understanding who you are beneath the noise, and building from there. Individuation is not isolation, it is integration. And it is through this integration that your life's work begins to form, authentic, original, and capable of reaching others in ways you never could have calculated.